Did you ever know about the family who built those animatronics? The guy's name was William Afton, and apparently, even as a kid, he was some sort of, prodigy. He, he did all these wonderful things, and eventually he created, well, the animatronics. I always found that weird. I mean, why would somebody who was that smart think that its life's work was to create robots for kids? I just never understood that. But William's family owned the pizzeria. They owned it back then, and they owned it, well, they might still own it now. So, I grew up after I had left Freddy Fazbear's, got married, got divorced, no kids, and I eventually settled back in this town. I worked as a hospital. I was one of those people who, gives you records when you request them for legal or business purposes. And I never really thought much about Freddy Fazbear's. Well, I take that back. I thought about it when I would ever be driving, and I came really close to seeing it. Now, the next part of this story, I wasn't there for. I can only rely on two people who came into my life and what their experiences was. The first was a girl named Tina. My first impression of Tina was she was that girl in high school that you always wish that you had talked more to, or that you'd struck up a friendship. She was pretty, but she was also very smart and caring and very intelligent. She went about life as if she was there to try to make it better. I know that sounds corny, but that's exactly who Tina was. Her boyfriend, Brad, now, he would be the type of guy that you would immediately dismiss. Good looking, athletic, probably captain of the football team, probably a real jerk. But he wasn't. He was a very caring and considerate guy, and he loved Tina. I didn't like him at first, but that had more to do with, well, what he thought was going on. From what I understand, Tina, who was, she had to have been 19, came home that summer after college and needed a job. She was one of those students who just needed money when school wasn't happening. So she got a job at Freddy Fazbear's as the night security. I asked Tina why she wanted that job, and she said she remembered when she was a kid. She used to love going to Freddy Fazbear's. She was taught by a supervisor about what to do, and I found it kind of strange because she told me that the training was much more centered about what was really going on there. Talk about how that you had to protect yourself against the animatronics at night. So Tina started working, and almost immediately she ran into issues. She didn't have the exact same experience as I did. It seemed like the animatronics were thinking, that they would coordinate their efforts. Also, the problem is that apparently somebody had thought it was a great idea to have power to the doors in the office. Now, I didn't have doors back when I worked there, but the doors consumed power when they were closed, which I thought at first was crazy, but maybe it had something to do with the fact that it was like a fire precaution or something. But Tina had problems almost immediately, as I said. Bonnie and Chica, and even Foxy would come and try to get in there. And the weirdest thing she said was that Foxy would actually run down the hall and bang on the door. She was never told about a night mode or anything else. Remember I told you how I felt that that place attracted evil? Well, I think it also tried to push away anything good. Tina told me stories about how her car wouldn't start on the way over there, or that she would be sure that she'd gotten her keys, but then she couldn't find them when she tried to enter the pizzeria. I don't think it wanted her there, whatever force it was. Tina, lasted days, and then she started asking around if anybody had any weird experiences at Freddy Fazbear's about employees. Somehow my name got mentioned. Now, I want to be perfectly honest here. I hated that place, and I was afraid of that place. But I never made my feelings public. I wasn't stupid. Talking about how animatronics were running around and that they were thinking and trying to kill me would probably earn me a one-way ticket to an insane asylum or something. I don't know who mentioned it, but one morning, it was a day off for me, I heard a knock at my door. I opened it up, and there she was, along with Brad. She said, "Mr. Fitzpatrick?" I said, "Yes, that's me." She said, "My name is Tina. This is Brad, and I'm the night security guard at Freddy Fazbear's." I was going to say immediately, "And why are you here?" But you know how veterans military veterans here, recognize each other even if they're not wearing military garb or at an event. They just know it. They see something in their eyes. I invited them in. And I told them the exact story I told you. Brad didn't believe a word of it. I saw eye rolls and scoffs, but Tina listened. And I think that was... Well, I think it's that veteran thing again, that we recognized each other. Because even if you believed a person who told you what was going on there at night, you had to see it to really embrace it and understand what was going on. Tina told me some weird things. She said that the animatronics were moving like they were human. Like it was somebody in a suit walking around, not just animatronics with, herky-jerky motions. I found that odd. I'd always found the animatronics when I worked there to be moving in a very stilted way, like a robot would walk. Tina also told me about a smell. She said the animatronics smelled like garbage left out in the sun too long. Again, I thought the animatronics never smelled when I was there. Tina asked me what I thought she should do. I told her 2 pieces of advice. The first was to quit that job. Now. Go someplace else. Tina shook her head. Knowing Tina as I do now, I think she felt that pull. And it was the pull that the place didn't want her there, and that just made her want to be there even more, to try to figure out why. The second piece of advice I told her was to always keep that music box wound. She looked at me quizzically. Music box? There's no music box. That's good, I said. I never liked that puppet thing. After they left, I thought about what they had said. And I swear that attraction started pulling me towards that place again. I didn't think there was some mystery. I thought that we should go over there with baseball bats and destroy the place. That place should have been burned to the ground. That night, I had a horrible nightmare. I dreamt I was in Freddy Fazbear's, the newer one. It was decrepit, though. Posters and kids' drawings of all the characters, and I could hear these sounds coming from outside, but I couldn't look at my camera. I kept looking down, trying to open it up so I could see where the animatronics were, but then when I looked up, Freddy was sitting in front of me. But it wasn't Freddy. He had taken on this almost golden look, and his eyes were all red. He just stared at me. I woke up and was shivering, even though it was a hot summer. I called in sick to work that day. I couldn't function. I kept seeing that bear sitting there staring at me. As the daylight began to fade, I realized that I had to go back there. Not just for me, but for Tina. This was a girl who was 19 years old, and she was braver than I'd ever been. I picked up my keys, I got into my car, and I drove over there. I had forgotten at night what that place looked like. Even from the outside, it looked like a cemetery. I parked the car. I saw another car sitting there, and I guess that must have been Tina's car. I didn't know what I was going to do. How was I even going to get in there? I didn't have her phone number. I couldn't bang on the door. She might come out, and the office was the safest place to be, especially with those things running around. I got up to the front door, still not knowing what I was going to do, and then I saw that it was unlocked. It had been wedged open just a little bit, and I could see that I could just pull it open. I had this crazy thought for just a second that they knew I was coming, and this was all some sort of trap. But it went away. I thought maybe... Tina hadn't struck me as someone who would misplace locking the doors. Something was wrong. Something was more wrong than in that place. I opened the door, and I slowly walked. They had changed Freddy Fazbear's from when I worked there, but it was still pretty much the same thing. Down to the left, I could see Pirate's Cove, I could see the hallway, but I was watching and I was listening because I was waiting for them to come around the corner. I don't know what would have happened if I would have saw one. I got to the door, and I could hear somebody talking. This is the office door, of course. I peeked my head in and saw that Brad was lying on the ground. There was blood coming from a gash in his head. Tina was huddled next to him, looking up at a guy I'd never seen before. He was wearing a security officer's uniform. He was saying something, but maybe because my attention was focused on Tina and Brad, I didn't hear what he was saying. I looked on the desk and saw that I could reach this huge metal fan that was sitting there. I picked it up and I swung. I think he must have heard me because he turned around just as I connected right with his head. He hit the edge of the desk and he went down. I looked at Tina and she was relieved to see me. But then I saw that she was looking behind me, and her eyes suddenly grew big. I turned around, and Bonnie was at the doorway, looking at me. I froze. I'll admit that. I froze. But maybe there was something in me, or the fact that I knew how much danger I was in. I suddenly took one step and pushed the button, and the door came down. I could still see Bonnie out through the window, and it was looking at me. Something was different. When Freddy had turned and looked at me during that day, I had saw recognition, but it was still computer recognition. When Bonnie looked at me, I swear to you, I could see human recognition. I thought for sure that Bonnie was going to start pounding on the glass, but it just kept staring at me, and then moved off into the darkness. A moan focused my attention back to the strange security guy who had been leaning over them. He was trying to get to his feet, but I immediately just kicked him in the back, and he went down flat. I asked Tina if she was okay, and she nodded yes, and Brad groggy, but he seemed all right. I turned that security guard over, and I knew who it was. Mike? Tina looked at me and she said, "That's the guy who hired me. His name is Mike Schmidt." I almost laughed. Schmidt? That's not Mike Schmidt, that's Mike Afton. That's William Afton's son. And it was. Michael Afton had been 2 years older than me. But he was the big man around town because everybody knew that his father had created that restaurant. Mike looked and focused on me. And I noticed one thing almost immediately. He was crazy. I could see it in his eyes, the way that pictures of Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer looked. Their eyes looked crazy. "What the hell are you doing, Mike?" I said. Mike looked at me and he said, and if I had any doubts that he was insane, he took all those away with his sentence. He said, "You're interfering in the plan." I think the thing that scared me the most was the calmness of it. It's if he just was asking me the time on the street. "Plan," I said. "What plan?" Again, Mike talked in that same calm, insane calm voice. He said, "There has to be a sacrifice. Don't you see? They are gods, and they must have a sacrifice." Honest to God, I started to pick up that fan again. Not to kill him, I just wanted to beat him into submission and shut up that talk. But before I could do that, my eyes went to his shirt. When I had hit him the first time, he must have caught one of his buttons on the table as he went down because it had popped open and I could see what was underneath it. It was a purple shirt. Do you think that people who are present for some great catastrophe, do you think they rethink and relive that day and see if they could catch warning signs? Like the people in Dealey Plaza who were there the day John F. Kennedy got shot. Do you think they ever replayed it in their mind and thought if they saw Oswald going into the book depository or something? I don't know, because that shirt, suddenly I was driving past again, and I was going to my job because I didn't want to drive past it, but I had to drive past Freddy Fazbear's, and yeah, that could have been Michael Afton, the purple guy. Suddenly I was back in the present, and I looked at him and I said, "It was you. You killed those kids." He actually nodded, as if I were complimenting him on some great project he had finished. They had to be. I had to give them someone. One for each. And then I thought about... Tina had said there'd been a smell. I almost got sick. Michael Afton had killed those kids, and he had fed them to the animatronics, one for each. Why? I whispered. Why? After what they had done to your family, Mike. Tina looked at me and she said, What do you mean? What did they do to his family? I looked at Tina, but only through the corner of my eye. I was keeping my eye on Michael. He was crazy, and being crazy meant that he was dangerous. Michael used to have a kid brother, I said. People said he was so scared of things. He especially hated this place. I saw a little twinge, as if I had touched a nerve on Mike, and there was pain there. I didn't care. He'd killed 5 kids. There was no sympathy left in me. And then one day at his birthday party, which was here, because where else would you have it, Michael's brother had his head put into one of the animatronics, and it bit down. I looked at Michael fully now. I was angry, and I wanted now to kill him. I wanted to strangle him. I wanted to bash his head in. How long did he live, Michael? What was it, 3 days in the hospital? Before he died? Michael looked up from the floor at me. He said, "Don't you see? That's why I'm doing this. So they won't hurt anyone else. Or hurt me. They understand. You can understand too. Jeremy, you just have to listen to me." I didn't want to listen to him. I didn't want to do anything. I looked at Brad. As I said, maybe I had misjudged Brad, but Brad had heard what I had said, and his face had gone red. With that, we picked up Michael Afton, and we started heading for the door. Tina, to her credit, tried to stop us. We didn't push her away, but I just looked at her, and there was something passed between us. He had killed kids. And I thought about what I had seen in those eyes of Bonnie. I told you before that I thought the animatronics were just created wrong, but these ones, I think those kids were still in there. And they were angry. Right before I opened the door, Michael knew what I was about to do. He actually started to try to push away and said, "No, stop. I'll explain it to you." To which I replied, "I don't care, Michael. You explain it to them." I pushed the door open, and me and Brad threw him out, and we locked the door again. For a moment, all I heard outside was breathing, and then I started hearing the sounds of something coming. Brad, who was unsteady on his feet, I helped to his chair, and I looked back and I saw that a shadow had been near the door. I wasn't very close to it, but I knew that top hat from anywhere. It was Freddy. I heard Michael scream. I heard sounds that sounded like crunching. And then a silence. And then I heard the sounds of something moving away. We stayed there until 6 a.m. and the day manager came and he asked us who we were, and just said that we were old friends. Freddy Fazbear's closed that day. The animatronics weren't working anymore. They couldn't turn them on. So it was shut down for a day, and day became a week became a month, and Freddy Fazbear's never reopened. There was no sign of Michael. I didn't care, not then. Tina and Brad and I talked about it later, and Tina, who had grown up here, said, "When Michael's brother, was that the bite of '87? And I said, "I think it happened in 1983. You know how stories get. They get twisted and changed, and the animatronics never worked again. They were scrapped. There was talk about finding William Afton, but he had disappeared, even though his company still owned the place." So that was it. Or so we thought. Still thirsty. This talking, it just drives me out. But there's still more. Oh, Freddy Fazbear's was closed. That was the end. And then some idiot had a great idea. What would happen if we turned Freddy Fazbear's into a haunted house?